All right, welcome back into the podcast. Very excited for this guest. He's been on a few times in the past, and it is always a great conversation, a lot of good information, a lot of good opinions, and a lot of passion. He is Marc Silverman. You know him as Silvy from Waddle and Silvy Afternoons on ESPN 1000, and he joins us now. Silvy, Bill Zimmerman, how are you?
Bill, it is always good to see you, to talk to you, to read you, and I'm excited. How could you not be passionate about our Bears?
I mean, I love it. I mean, this is such a unique situation to be in right now. And, I kind of said this at the beginning of the podcast. I really don't know how to feel because I've always said I am never one, you can look at this year and say this is a rebuild or whatever, but I'm never one to say I hope they go 3-14 and get the second pick of the draft. That's not, I want wins. I don't care. I want wins. If they're 1-15 at the end of the year, and if they lose, they get the first pick of the draft, and Peyton Manning or someone like that is sitting there, that's different. But in terms of the week to week, I want wins. And here they are sitting at 2-1, seeing some nice things from certain aspects of the team. But Justin Fields, which I think a lot of us believe this year is about Justin Fields, it's just not been what we wanted to see out of him. So where are you with kind of through 3 games where the Bears are winning games right now, but Justin Fields is not the reason why?
Yeah, I'd much rather go 3-14 and know that Fields is a stud. But like I'm not in the rooting mode of being bad either. I'm not in the tank mode right now. I want to see the new regime set a culture. I want to see them win. Because of Justin Fields, because of a developing offensive line, because of some other offensive skill position players. I like the run game, but the one reason I'm concerned is I feel like they're winning, but they haven't really developed anything on offense. And like, what are you truly building on offense? And it's why I was very mad that they didn't go for points or go to try at least to move the ball before the half, because I thought that was a perfect building opportunity. And I think there's a difference between playing to win games and playing not to lose games. And I think Eberflus basically admitted it, that he would do it again, or that he would change and not do it again. But I feel like what the Bears did before the half there they were playing not to lose. And I would like to see them give an opportunity to the offense, give an opportunity to Fields as poorly as he's played, to do something in that situation, because I don't think that there's another way to simulate that in practice or in the preseason. Those are big time moments for a quarterback. So I guess it's a long way of saying I need to see more. I'm not rooting against them. I'm happy with wins because I think that increases the passion like you talked about with the fan base. But at the end of the day, I truly I have a simple motto for this year's team, and it's build me a football team. Build a football team. I want a better football team by the end of the year as opposed to the beginning of the year, so you know exactly what you need and what you don't need going into 2023, where hopefully they're in some sort of a playoff race.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And before we jump into Justin Fields, because I think there's a lot to get into there, let me ask you about Luke Getsy, because the last couple of weeks, a lot, week 1 with the monsoon, it's tough to really kind of look at a play designs and the game plan and everything. But these last couple of weeks, look, the run game is great. And I know stick with what works, right? And they're running the football well. Khalil Herbert looked amazing last week. Montgomery looked very good against the Packers. It looks like there's a great combination back there. But, I mean, they are not passing at a forget not passing well, not passing at all at a historic rate. I mean, you're talking about going back decades in a pass-happy league. You're talking about going back to the, 3 yards in a cloud of dust 30, 40 years ago, the last time you've seen teams that have thrown this few passes through 3 games. So let me ask you about Luke Getsy and what he's done here. Are you okay with what you've seen in terms of what he's calling on the offensive side of the ball? I know we all want to see more passes, but like I said, the running game's working. Is it Luke Getsy told us all offseason he was going to run the hell out of the football, and he's running the hell out of the football. But is this what you think Getsy had in mind, or is this maybe, lack of trust in the way Fields is playing?
Yeah, I think everyone says, like, show me, don't tell me. And they're showing us that they don't trust Justin. I'm of the belief that shooters got to shoot. And like I've made a couple of basketball comparisons this week about this. I think that in order for Justin to get into a rhythm, in order for Justin to grow, you have to pass the ball more. I love that they're supporting him with the run. So, I felt like it was Matt Nagy's blind spot. And Matt Nagy, he had many blind spots and many faults, but running the ball was one of those blind spots. And I like being committed. I am not interested in building another 1970 Bears team. I'm not. We've been there. We've done that. What are you truly going to win? Like, you're going to need to throw the football, and I get it that they want to protect him some. I also think he can learn a lot from mistakes. Like I once famously got into an argument on the air with Vinny Del Negro, the Bulls coach, and this is my other basketball comp, where at the end I obnoxiously said to Vinny after the interview went well, Derrick Rose at the end of the game, Vinny. And this was after there were a few games in either Derrick's rookie year or his second year. I think it was his rookie year, where like in game winning moments when like the Bulls were down one, like Derrick would be put on the bench and they would put in Thabo Cephalosha. And it drove me crazy because Derrick was going to be the foundation of what this team did back then. And you knew and hoped that he was going to be a star. And the only way to get a player better is to put him in those moments with games to win. It's not like a loss or two or a mistake or two is going to cost you a playoff spot. This team is in rebuild mode. This is when you let the player grow and you let him have the growing pains. So, like, I always used to get Vinny because he wouldn't put Derrick in those situations to, quote, protect him. And I feel similar to Justin. Now, I don't know. I once thought very highly of Justin. I still like him. I want to see more, but I don't know if the comp's is good because, Derrick turned out to be a great player before he got hurt. But I would like to see Justin get the opportunities in bigger moments to throw the football and to do different things than just 18 times a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we dive into Fields here, because I got plenty to ask you about with Justin. So right now with this team sitting at 2-1, and look, Giants coming up, Washington coming up, there's winnable football games on the schedule, especially early here. Are you getting here? I have two vibes for you. You tell me which one you're getting right now. You can have the 2020 Chicago Bears that were 3-0 with the Falcon comeback and the Giant comeback, and they were 3-0, but everyone looked at this team and went, I don't know. And they end up going 8-8 and fell apart there, especially in the middle of the season. Or the 2001 Chicago Bears wind it back 20 years, that 13-3 team that I think most of us knew when we watched it. This was not an elite football team. This was just a team that was playing well and the ball just kept bouncing their way all season. So right now, are you feeling more 2020 or 2001?
Oh, yeah. This is not I covered the 2001 Bears. This ain't the 2001 Bears. I mean, they had a young, dynamic Brian Urlacher and Mike Brown. They had Ted Washington and Keith Traylor up front. Philip Daniels also was pretty good rushing the passer. Didn't they have Colvin and Holdman on that team too? I'm trying to think if Colvin.
I think so.
Yeah, before he went to the Patriots, and like that was like, except for the quarterback, and like that's where, but I also knew covering that team what was the future going to be, because with Jim Miller and Shane Matthews at quarterback, what did you really have? You had A-Train with the Rookie of the Year, everything. You got some good luck. So I don't think this is that. So I feel more of one of those, one of these other years where hopefully by the end of the year, they'll continue to surprise us and they play good competitive football because we know these coaches could coach. But again, What I truly want to know is what have you built so far through 2 wins? And I don't know if you've built that much so far.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that everyone needs to keep in mind. And I said this earlier. Look, and I love the fact that they're 2-1, but when they did have an opportunity, I get it, it's a rivalry game. Lambeau Field's a tough place to play. But when they did have a chance, and I know some people want to look at officials and things like that, I don't. I think they were thoroughly outplayed in that game, and the score represented that. I think at this point, this team is proving that they can potentially beat bad teams. And I think the 49ers with Trey Lance in a very inexperienced position for him, with a second career start, whatever it was. I don't want to call them bad, but with the conditions, that game opened up for it. And the Houston Texans are a bad team, period. And they beat them at the buzzer. I mean, that's the kind of, on a great play from Roquan Smith. I mean, that's where they are. Now they can beat the Giants. The Giants, I think, are like the Bears, where they're overachieving. But I think, some people, I've seen some fans, and look, I love the fact that they're winning, but I've seen fans, jumping on, 10 wins, potentially, and chalking up all these W's. And I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with, can they win some games? Absolutely. They've got winnable games on the schedule, but I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves on some of the excitement, and I hate to, be a Debbie Downer, but I do think some of it is a little, puffed up right now.
This goes into the thing that I keep saying about not all 7 or 8 win seasons are created equally. Like if you win 7 or 8 games because you're running the ball and Justin Fields doesn't grow, and you're still unsure about Larry Borum, you don't know about Braxton Jones, how much is Tevin Jenkins playing, like then I don't know, like how much is Darnell Mooney not producing. There's a lot there where you could say, yeah, it's nice that they won 7 or 8 games. But again, I keep going back to this point of what are you building? But if you win 7 or 8 games or even 6 games, and Darnell Mooney then continues to come into his own, Justin Fields goes through the growing pains and turns it into true growth. You find out that you've got guys on the offensive line who are really good players and that you're good with going forward, then that's different. Like, and getting to your point about bad teams, I really feel like there's this most of the NFL is made of mediocrity. I think we all agree of that. I think there are a lot of teams in this category where, like you mentioned, Washington, I think it's a very beatable team. Even the Vikings, after their first week, I think that's a team that isn't going to be dominant. While Detroit's better, I still think you can get one from Detroit. The Giants are beatable. The Jets are beatable. They look at the Bears and they say the Bears are beatable. But I do like if the Bears go 2-3 in the next 5, like now all of a sudden you're up to 4. So I took the over, going back to the gambling stuff. I don't even know if we brought up gambling, but a lot of it has to do with it. I took the over based on the preseason because I liked what I saw, that they weren't creating penalties and they weren't shooting themselves in the foot like a lot of the Matt Nagy teams. So basically, yes, I agree with you. This is not a 10-win team, but I think they can give us a little bit more to cheer from, and even more to cheer from if we get to the Fields point. That is just, it all goes back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought this was about a 5-win team. If you ask me now, I think it's probably 6 or 7. But, I still don't think they're going to, get on a roll and surprise people. And I think the big reason why is Justin Fields. And you talked about you'd rather them go 3-14 and know that Fields is a stud. And that to me is it's the Justin Herbert comparison, right? Tyrod Taylor gets hurt in week 2 or, with the bad shot, whatever it was. And Herbert comes in and just is the guy. And you're like, all right, the Chargers stunk that year, right? But Justin Herbert just put up numbers and was 300 yards and 3 touchdowns a game, basically. I would love, and yes, would I rather see them go 12-5 and make the playoffs and win the division? Sure. But if we're talking about them going 8-9, and at the end of the year, we're going, is Fields the guy? Should they bring in competition? Should they look to move up in the draft? If that's the option versus 3-14 and Fields throws 30 touchdowns and is dynamic, give me the Justin Herbert season, because That's what's going to sustain winning for the next decade, is having a guy like that. I mean, look, you look at teams, the Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady's, Drew Breeses, the Peyton Mannings, Russell Wilson, you go through Ben Roethlisberger, before he got old at the end of his career. You look at these teams and you look at their wins year in and year out. Bad year. Now, this is obviously before 17 games. Bad years, they were 8-8. Those were the bad seasons. When you have a quarterback that stabilizes your team, you've got a place at the table every year, and there'll be ebbs and flows and ups and downs. But the Bears need a quarterback. They've never basically had one. I really thought Fields was going to be the guy. I mean, I still have a lot of hope in him. I look at the arm strength, the arm accuracy, which has now escaped him, the athleticism, and the fact that he's cool under pressure. He's an intelligent guy. You can tell he grabs concepts quickly. He knows, when you talk to him, when you hear him talk after the game, he knows exactly what went, when you ask Trubisky, a lot of times Trubisky's like, that didn't work out for us. He gives you this vague answer. Sometimes you get surprised when Trubisky gave you a very good, specific answer about why something didn't work. With Fields, you expect it because yep, this is why I did this. This is why I did that. You sit there, I was talking to, someone, I won't throw his name out there, but I was talking to an NFL analyst, a national NFL analyst, who basically told me that if you talk to Justin Fields and you see him practice, it seems impossible that he will fail, is basically what I was told by a guy, a very respected opinion in the NFL. But now I'm sitting here now with Fields, the accuracy has gotten worse. I mean, we know how awful the system was around him last year with Matt Nagy. And I know it's only 3 games, and I know one of them was a monsoon. But literally, I don't care if you look at traditional stats or advanced stats, he has gotten worse in every category. Completion percentage is down. Yards per attempt is down. Sack percentage is up. I mean, everything is going, interception percentage, everything is going the wrong direction. And now I'm seeing some people throwing out the idea, and Fields was asked about it, about, is it mental? Does he need like a sports psychologist kind of thing? I mean, I don't know if we're there with it. I don't know if they've got him thinking too much and he's not playing, but there's definitely something going on in between the ears. Where are you with kind of Justin's headspace right now?
Yeah, he's not reacting. Like, he is not smooth right now. He is more Trubisky-like, with very robotic, missing guys who are open when they like missing them when they're open, and then when he does throw it to them, overthrowing it or not being accurate, like you talked about. Waddle says that he's in his own head right now. Like, and I get it, but we need to see more. Like, a lot of people get mad. They're like, Silvy, why? Like, I termed it last week. I said I was nervous. This week, nervous has been raised to concerned. I'm concerned now. Not writing him off. I don't think he sucks. He checks every box, just like you said. But I want to know why on game day in those 3 games, it's small sample size, but that's all we have to judge on this year. Why has he regressed from last year with a new coaching staff? Why in these games has he looked as bad? And this is firsthand experience. I covered these guys. Why has he looked as bad as Rick Meyer? Why has he looked as bad as Cade McNown?
Don't bring those names up, please.
Jonathan Quinn. Dude, Bill, this is where it's at, though. Like,
I know. It just makes me shudder.
Yeah, and like just the not throwing for many yards, not having the high reward. It makes you like, my mind is blown. Like, if you would have told me the numbers after 3 games, again, it's only 3. So anyone who wants to yell at the podcast and say, Silvy, it's only 3. How could you? This is all, I am just talking about 3 because this is the evidence we have. Hopefully after 6, the narrative changes. Like, it's not even a narrative. It is like, and Waddle always uses the point. I wanted to get to this today on the show and I never did. His Yogi Berra phrase is, if you want to change a narrative, change a narrative. Like, it's so simple. Like, it's right there for Justin. Justin's got 14 games here to convince Ryan Poles that they shouldn't go out and get their own guy. And like for all the people who say to me, Silvy, you gave Trubisky this amount of time, which I didn't. I was never bullish on Trubisky. But Ryan Pace gave him that amount of time. And the difference is it was Ryan Pace's draft pick. Ryan Pace banged his hand on the table saying that he insists that he's going to work. He just needs this. He just needs that. This isn't Ryan Pace anymore. Ryan Pace was the guy who drafted this. He doesn't have a job anymore. Ryan Poles has no connection to him whatsoever as his own draft pick. So I believe he's got 14 more games to change the narrative, and he can do that. He can make everyone a believer. So it's right there for you. No one's being a hater simply because they're pointing out that we all want to see more. And we believed, because we did buy the hype in Justin Fields, that he was better than this.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it is only 3 games, and we're all trying to keep that in mind. But at the same time, 3 games is just about 20% of the season. It's only a 17-game season. Now, 14 games, there's a lot that can happen in 14 games, but we are trying to look at basically 1/5 of the season here on the sample size, and it is, historically terrible. So, and like you said about changing the narrative, he needs to go out there and change the narrative. And that's kind of what I was saying about someone who was talking to me, and I was complaining about the refs against the Packers, which, yeah, there were some bad calls. Field scored. I mean, we know that. We see that. We pull our hair out every time. But I said to him, when was the last time, name a team, right, that is consistently good, that doesn't get calls? And the only one I came up with is sometimes I feel like Lamar Jackson does not get the benefit of the doubt from officials. And the Ravens win 10, 11 games every year. But other than that, Tom Brady's teams get the calls. Aaron Rodgers' teams get the calls. The Patriots, they get the calls. It doesn't, because when you consistently win, you get the benefit of the doubt from the officials. And when you stink, this is the kind of stuff that you have to deal with. So I'm right. And you're right. And I said this before, I think the Bears failed Justin Fields in the offseason. I think they should not have taken two defensive players in the second round. I think they should have invested more I understand limited resources, and I did not want them punting money into the future like Ryan Pace did the last couple of years. But the limited resources they had, I wanted to see more of a focus on offense and less of one on defense. I wanted, Justin Fields to not have what I think is the worst talented offense in the NFL around him. And I do think that now, maybe with Montgomery and Herbert and the way they're playing in the run game, maybe it's not quite the worst, but that's what I thought it was going into the year. So at some point, you just have to say, look, these are the cards that Justin Fields was dealt, and he needs to succeed with these. And I think at the end of the year, look, the Bears can't keep winning games if Justin Fields plays like this. At the end of the year, I think the Chicago Bears, Poles and Flus, they need to know 100%. Are we going back in the first round and trying to get, Young, Stroud, whoever it might be, and trade Justin Fields for a 4th round pick and start over at quarterback? Or are they going to use that pick for whether it be, the 3 tech that Flus wants on his defense, or that wide receiver weapon to go opposite Mooney? I think they really need to know the path. This is kind of a feel out year and a rebuild year, but come March of next year, they really need to know the path that this team is taking. And the worst thing that it could be is at the end of the year going, is he or isn't he for Justin Fields? We need to know definitively one way or the other. And unfortunately, right now it's trending as definitively not the guy. And I do think it can get turned around, but I think at this point, like you were saying, you finally, your levels. I said at the beginning of the podcast, like, if this is the DEFCON system, right? DEFCON 5, you're not worried at all, right? Everything's cool. You draft Justin Fields, you're at DEFCON 5. You have faith, he needs time to develop, fine. After the end of last year, and you can blame Nagy all you want, you're at DEFCON 4. To me, after this Giant game, you're at DEFCON 3. It does not mean you're wrecked. It does not mean he's ruined, but now you're at DEFCON 3. And I think even the most confident of Bears fans and the biggest believers in Justin Fields have to be sitting there looking at their Cheerios in the morning going, yeah, I don't know about this.
Yeah, all true. But The only pushback I'll give you, and I was with you on draft, I was upset, but I've been convinced that I understand. Like, I want Ryan Poles to draft the best players too. And I wanted more linemen. I wanted more wide receivers. And like, I brought up Mooney. Mooney's got 27 yards. Like, if he's not hitting Mooney, and I know Mooney isn't blameless, like, would he be hitting AJ Brown? Would he be hitting Sky Moore? Would he be hitting George Pickens? Would he be hitting any of these guys? Cole Kmet, I don't think is very good. Cole Kmet was wide open in the middle of the field. As Waddle says, open is open. You know, whether it's St. Brown, who's raising his arm and he's wide open. These are guys still who are open who he's not identifying. So I still, like, I think it's sort of a cop-out when we look at the talent around him. He also needs to be better in what he does. I want better offensive linemen and better wide receivers. Yes, I agree with all that. I don't know if a lot of the field's problems is tied to the lack of talent, though, through 3 games at least.
Yeah, again, and I'm not sure what the problem is. And yes, you want to, you know, when you look at advanced stats, they say that the Bears are one of the least open receivers in the NFL. I think they were 29th in what I saw earlier this week. So the receivers aren't streaking wide open. But and the offensive line pass protection, the run blocking has been 50 times better than the pass blocking. It's a night and day kind of. It's almost fascinating to watch the offensive line do so well with one thing and struggle in the other. But you know, like I said, these are the cards he was dealt. So you can sit there and say, well, they should have gotten another veteran receiver, or they could have signed a veteran offensive lineman. And I said all those things. They could have spent a 2nd round pick on something on offense. But in the end, this is the unit that Justin Fields has, and this is the unit he needs to perform in. And we don't need to see 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, but it's not even the statistics that are alarming. It's the way he's playing, right? He's timing routes he's totally off on. Guys where you see that you can watch it as a fan and go, that guy's about to get open, but Fields isn't ready to throw the ball. It's, you know, it's how hesitant he is. You know, a lot of people smarter than me are talking about how bad his footwork has become. And these are things, you know, they were going to iron out all these mechanics. And like I said, I don't know if he's thinking about it too much. I don't know what it is, but, you know, we've talked about it plenty, but yeah, there's something going on there. And, you know, they need to figure out in a hurry, because this is how you can lose a young QB.
You know, one thing I've said a lot on the show too is with the talent, and if they do go forward with Fields or whoever it is, that in today's free agency system, no matter how much cap room you have, you're probably not going to get a premier free wide receiver on the open market. If you look at all these teams, like the Eagles, I mentioned AJ Brown, like the Miami Dolphins with Tyreek Hill, like the Buffalo Bills with Stephon Diggs, those all have come via trades, because you know, those guys are not going to reach free agency because they're going to be franchised, and teams won't just give them away. So like NBA free agency, where we always wait, like if I'm a Bulls fan, who's that next star who's going to want out to be traded? And is KD going to want that trade? On and on and on. I think we as Bears fans have to keep our eye on a premier receiver. And I know, like, a guy like DK Metcalf, he just got new money. But the Seahawks may say, look, where we are right now in our rebuild, it's not worth paying a wide receiver X amount of dollars. Maybe they look to trade DK. Maybe there's somebody else that you got to circle, because I'd rather grab one of those guys than sign like a Christian Kirk or someone who's more middle of the road available.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's absolutely something they should consider, unless they sit there and there's, you know, they know they're going with Fields. They're sitting there with the 8th, 9th, 10th pick, and there's 2 or 3 wide receivers they love. And they're going to say, all right, we're going to get this guy. We're going to pair him with Mooney. We can pay Mooney and still have 2 dynamic players, so we won't have to pay this other guy till 4 or 5 years down the road.
Right, like Garrett Wilson. Right, like a Garrett Wilson, Olave, you know,
absolutely.
Guys they played with, like, who came in this year, who may be available next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, let's get off Fields here. Let's finish up with a couple other things. Defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Roquan Smith, really rough start the first couple games, and then just brought the thunder against Houston, including in essence the game-winning play. I think Brisker overalls look pretty darn good. Gordon, I kind of feel like they're asking him to do too much, jumping him inside and outside, which is, I think, kind of causes struggles, but he has flashed as well. And, pass rush a little inconsistent. They couldn't stop the run in the first 10 quarters of the season, but, the last 2 quarters, they did a great job with it. So defense, I think overall has been doing a good job keeping them in the games. But kind of where are you with kind of, not just the defense overall, but kind of those key components, those potential building blocks, and how they've looked so far?
Yeah. I think I'd like to see more of a pass rush. I think it's going to be really interesting stopping the run against Barkley, who we see is really healthy this week. Like you said about the kid too, like giving him too much. The one thing that I'll say about it is it's kind of the way I want them to treat Fields. If it's a rebuilding year, okay, if you're giving him a little bit too much, if you're giving him too much to chew, so be it. And if he makes the mistake and if it helps his growth and it's not counterproductive, I like it. And it's kind of getting back to what I said about Fields. I want them to give him more. And I think growing pains are okay, even though he's had a bunch already. So I don't mind that, what they're doing with their young defensive players, giving them a lot, seeing how much that they can handle. I like what Roquan did. I think to overcome no training camp, the contract negotiations, and then the injury, and a lot of people were speculating in our fan base last week, hey, is he missing all these practices? Is he pissed? Is he still down about the contract? And to see him bounce back and to play like he played. And look, in a 17-game season, when these guys don't get preseasons anymore, we see a lot of it with good teams where like the first 3 or 4 weeks are like an extension of preseason. So if he balls out after this for the most part of this year, he's going to make a lot of money and sell Eberflus that he can be, the Leonard of the defense. And I'm hopeful that maybe this will be a jumping off point for Roquan.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the offensive side of the ball, I know we've mentioned it, but we haven't really talked about it. The offensive line in the run game, like I said, if you look at the offensive line and kind of break it down individually, I mean, Tevin Jenkins is exactly who we thought. He mauls people in the running game, and you've got to like what you see there. I'm hoping we're close. I think Mustafer's been better than a lot of people would have expected, but I think Sam Mustipher has developed himself into being, if he can play guard, that he's a solid backup. He can, if he can back up at center and guard, and that's fine. But I think Patrick is a better option than him. I'd like to see Jenkins playing, 100% of the snaps, and hopefully as soon as this week. Yeah. And I think that's going to help the offensive line some there. But the tackles, look, I know Braxton Jones, we're just got to kind of grow with. But I think at this point, at least for me personally, and I know this is an unpopular opinion amongst Bears fans, I don't think Borum's it. I think he might be a swing tackle. I don't think he's it. I think, I don't think Cody Whitehair's he's playing well, but I don't think Cody Whitehair is going to be back next year because his contract's too big. I think they need to make some offensive line investments next year. I think probably maybe bring in 2 veterans, a guard and a tackle, and still draft, which I clearly Poles is going to do. But I just think this offensive line is interesting because you're just, Larry Borum got abused by Rashawn Gary a couple of times, and that's not, he's had other issues as well. Mustipher got abused a couple of times as well. But, I like the offensive line is better than I expected. So overall, I'm pleased with it, and I'm thrilled with the run game. But I still, if Justin Fields is going to get comfortable, he's got to trust the 5 guys in front of him, and I don't think he does. And I think that's playing into it a little bit. And I just, I don't know what the answer is to kind of solidify the offensive line the rest of the way. Maybe it's give Riley Reif a chance, but there's just something missing there. But like I said, it's better than I thought, but it needs to still get a little better.
I agree. I don't think it's an unpopular opinion about the Borum thing. I think Waddle agrees with you after watching the All-22 week after week after week. I've been a big proponent. I want to see this week. I want to see Lucas Patrick go back to center now that he's gotten some reps under him, now that he's gotten his legs, now that the thumb is better. I want to see him back to center, and I want Tevin Jenkins to play every snap, and I want to see him grow. So those are my couple points. And then I also like what I've seen from Herbert. He showed flashes last year. I'm of the belief that I didn't want to have the re-sign Montgomery thing pick up too much steam anyway. We fall in love too much with our running backs. The Bears have shown you they can find a back every year in the 5th round, and he's more than capable. It's a run game, not the running back. And I think Herbert is the latest to show you that. And I think as much money as you have, putting money into David Montgomery, I think would be silliness right now. And I would be confident going forward. And I'm glad that Herbert's had success and he could show more Bears fans that point.
Absolutely. I think, and I hope this is going to be Ryan Poles' plan. It was kind of Ryan Pace's plan. It wasn't perfect, but he did it for the most part. I hope Poles takes the day 3 running back every year, 5th, 6th round, get a guy in there. They're not all going to hit, but a couple of them probably will. And, you got Montgomery, and then you get Herbert, and then you get, Ebner, and, get another guy next. When Montgomery leaves, you bring another guy in, and you just kind of, the Kyle Shanahan, mentality. I mean, if that's kind of the offense we're going to be running here, trust the scheme and, use the running backs and use them heavily. And when it's time to pay them, let another team pay them, and you can invest your resources elsewhere. So I'm with you 100%. I know Montgomery's popular and he's a solid back. He's not, but to me, the only running backs I pay are the elite difference makers. The Derrick Henry when he's unstoppable, what Saquon Barkley was supposed to be, and maybe, eventually gets back, what Christian McCaffrey was a few years ago, those type of running backs, what Jonathan Taylor was last year. Those are the guys that I think you pay. And if you don't have that guy, then you trust the offensive line, you trust the scheme, and you use kind of replaceable backs. So, before I let you go, let's get a prediction. Giants this week. It's a winnable game, but it's on the road. Kind of, what do you think at this point during the week? What do you think is going to happen?
I'm 3-0 picking Bears games so far. So I don't feel great about this. I think they can win. I don't think they will win. I think Saquon Barkley will be too much for them. Going on the road, I think, is going to be tough. I think it's going to be another close game in the 20-17 type mode. I think they're a 3-point dog now anyway. So something around there. But as of today, when we're doing the pod, my prediction would be the Giants to win this game. But they can win it, and they're on the short week. Did the Giants play Monday night, or do I have that? Or was that Sunday night? What day did the Giants play?
Yeah, what did they play? You're right.
My days are all screwed up.
It was Monday night. It was Monday night.
So they're in a short week, and we'll see. They're definitely gettable. So. And a lot of these games are gettable.
All right. Well, there he is. He's Marc Silverman, Silvy, at Waddle and Silvy on Twitter, if you don't follow him, which I'm sure you already do. Marc, thanks for so much time. Really appreciate it. And enjoy the show and keep it up.
Keep up the great work, Bill. Thanks.